let's put that straight to the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, Chris Philp, who has been listening. Very good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
I think you were listening to Martin Lewis there, and he is asking you that very specific question. If interest rates go up by the percentage they are predicted, what are you going to do for those people who can no longer afford to pay for their houses?
Yes, I think I caught the back end of what Martin was saying. And we completely understand the concern that people have about mortgage rates. They've been going up around the world for about the last 6 or 9 months. And in some countries, like the United States, the base rate has gone up by even more than it has in the UK over that 6 or 9 month period. One of the reasons why we made the energy intervention was partly, obviously, to protect your listeners, or your viewers rather, from the catastrophically high energy prices that they would otherwise have faced. So we're protecting households from those, what could have been £4,000, £5,000, £6,000 or even £7,000 energy bills. So we took action to protect families and businesses from that. The average bill will now be no higher than £2,500, and households will get an additional support package
Chris,
of up to
sorry,
£1,200.
Mr. Philp, I have to intervene. Right, this is we can talk about energy bills, and we can talk about the misleading figure 2,500, which frankly is not helpful because it gives the impression that your bill won't go over £2,500, and that is not the case. We are asking specifically, and Martin Lewis has asked you specifically about interest rates and about mortgages. What are you going? And it doesn't matter what people in America are paying in interest rates, because here people are going to pay increased interest rates and may not be able to pay off their mortgages. So and that's what Martin Lewis has been asking about.
I understand. I'm coming to that. The reason I was referencing the energy package was partly to make the point that it's protecting people from these devastatingly high costs. But secondly, it will lower inflation by about 5% compared to what it would otherwise have been, which obviously takes the pressure off interest rates. Now, interest rates are obviously set independently by the Bank of England. They do that in response to what are essentially global inflationary pressures. What we can do as a government is make sure that we're taking steps to protect households from rising costs. So the energy intervention is a good example of that, protecting people from those £7,000, potentially £7,000 bills. We're also trying to make sure the tax burden is as light as it can be, because that makes sure people keep more of their own money that they earn in their pocket, which helps
with all due respect, Mr. Philp, you still haven't answered the question, because even though the Bank of England will set the base rate, retail mortgage rates are already going up. They're already becoming more expensive. So what are you going to do if people who are going from fixed rates onto variables can't afford to pay their mortgages?
So I was trying to answer that question. I was saying we're going to make sure people can keep. Well, first of all, we're going to protect people from shocks like the energy price crisis caused by Putin's illegal invasion. But we're also going to make sure that people keep as much of their own money as they possibly can by having lower and competitive tax rates to help them meet whatever the costs that they have to face.
The interest rates are rising right now. You are obviously not in a position, personally, where your variable rate mortgage has gone up from perhaps 2% to 5%, and you're facing it going up even more, paying thousands more per year. And what you're saying to people is, don't worry, because in April, you'll get a reduction in your tax. That doesn't help for people right now.
Just forgive me. So look, I know what the implications are, but I've got a variable rate mortgage myself. Look, I'm saying where there are crises like the energy crisis that would have taken huge amounts of money from people's pockets, £7,000 a year, far larger than the figures that Martin Lewis was talking about a minute ago, then we have taken action to stop that happening. We're keeping the tax burden low so people keep more of their own money. We've also provided the energy. Hang on, can I please just finish the answer? We've also provided support of up to £1,200 a year for the more vulnerable people to deal with the energy situation, as well as the energy price, in addition to the energy price guarantee. But the broader question, there's a broader question here, which is how do we increase prosperity? How do we help people to earn more money? And the answer to that question, there's a much bigger question going forward over a number of months and years, is to get the economy growing. That's how we get people's wages going up to meet the costs they face. That's how we create better jobs, the jobs of the future. Okay. That's how we generate the tax revenues that will pay for education, for health, and for the police. Okay. And that growth plan was set out on Friday. Yeah. It includes not just competitive tax rates, but also so-called supply-side reforms where we reduce regulation on businesses, we invest in infrastructure. Yeah. And business organisations,
OK, Mr. Philp.
Let me finish, like the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, the Federation of Small Businesses, the British Chambers
of
Commerce.
We don't have a lot of time with you. Apologies for interrupting. We don't have a lot of time with you, and there are lots of pressing issues. Our viewers are very, very nervous about the situation. As you say, the mini-budget on Friday and then hearing the Chancellor on Sunday doubling down created a lot of unrest in the city. We saw what happened yesterday. We saw the Bank of England having to jump in to protect pension funds. There was a fast sale on bonds. £65 billion was put in to support all of that situation. A couple of the things that you know only too well, that the city loves stability. They like to know what's going to happen. And a lot of what you had said, they knew about, and that was fine, but it was the cuts to income tax and the various high rates that really threw them into a spin. The suggestions have been the way to stabilise things would be to either reverse what you've done, and we know you're not going to do that, or to offer some spending cuts across the other government departments and budgets. Is that something we're going to hear from Liz Truss? Is there going to be some spending cuts across other departments and government spending in order to try and appease what's happening in the city?
Well, so you're right, we're not going to be changing our plans because having competitive tax rates is important to help your viewers. Cuts. Yeah, I'm going to come on to spending. It's important we have competitive tax rates so your viewers can keep more of their own money to meet the challenges that we face. It's also important to make sure that businesses and successful people who are internationally mobile choose to locate in the UK, not New York or Singapore or wherever else it may be. Now, on the so that is important. It's important to land that point. Now, on the spending side, I'll make a couple of points and the sort of how is all this going to be funded question. The first point is that we start this from a position of strength. We've got the UK has the second lowest level of debt to GDP in the G7. In terms of spending plans, the last government set out a 3-year spending plan about a year ago, which covers this current financial year and the next 2. And we are going to be sticking to that with iron discipline. And to do that, we're going to be looking at efficiencies to make sure we absolutely stick within that budget. We're also going to be making sure we are prioritising the spending of taxpayers' money, because it's your viewers' money that pays for all this, is being spent on the frontline services that matter the most, and also prioritised towards driving economic growth. Then, on the 23rd of November, the Chancellor will set out his medium-term fiscal plan.
Is there any idea that he will bring that forward? Because that's the other thing the City have said. They would love to hear some detail, and they don't want to have to wait till the 23rd of November.
I understand. No, it's going to be the 23rd, because we want to do this in a way that's thoughtful, considered. Between now and the 23rd of November, through October and early November, there are going to be a number of further announcements on supply side. These won't be spending commitments. These are going to be supply side reforms, reducing regulation, expediting certain kinds of infrastructure projects, which will also drive economic growth. We're going to draw that together on the 23rd of November in the medium-term fiscal plan that will explain how debt over GDP will fall over the medium term, and that will be scored by the Office for Budgetary Responsibility, Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR, as will the March budget, or the spring budget, sorry, I don't know when it'll be, but the March budget will be scored by the OBR as well. So there's a very clear path, but iron discipline on spending, sticking to those existing spending plans, is a critical part of that.
We're going to have to leave you there. Chris Philp, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.